It was a quiet night in a small town at the edge of the countryside. The Martins' home stood peaceful under a silver moon, surrounded by the soft sound of crickets. Inside, everything was still. The only light came from a small lamp glowing beside a little girl's bed. 3-year-old Emma was fast asleep, her tiny hands clutching her stuffed bunny. The air was calm, the kind of silence that feels safe until it wasn't. On the couch in the living room, their gray cat, Milo, lifted his head suddenly. His sharp ears twitched. Something had changed. The air smelled strange, almost metallic, and it made him uneasy. He jumped off the couch and padded softly across the wooden floor, his paws making no sound. In the kitchen, a faint hiss whispered behind the stove. No one noticed it, but Milo did. He sat still for a moment, staring, his golden eyes wide. The smell grew stronger, though the humans couldn't sense it yet. To Milo it felt wrong, like danger hiding in the air. He turned toward Emma's room. The door was slightly open. He slipped inside and leapt onto her bed. The little girl stirred but didn't wake. Milo sniffed the air again, his tail flicking nervously. The room felt heavy now. Emma's breathing was slow, too slow. The cat crouched near her face, his whiskers trembling. He meowed once, a soft sound that went unanswered. He leaned closer, touching her cheek with his paw. Still she didn't move. Milo sat up straight. Something inside him knew he couldn't wait. He began to pat her face again, softly at first, then harder. Emma frowned in her sleep, turning her head away. Milo meowed louder this time, the sound echoing through the dark room. When she still didn't wake, he used both paws, tapping her cheek again and again. Finally, Emma's eyes fluttered open. She blinked, confused, her small voice breaking the silence. "Milo?" she whispered. The cat's fur stood up, his eyes wide and shining in the dim light. He meowed again, louder this time. Emma sat up and began to cry, not out of fear of the cat, but because the air felt strange, thick. Her cry filled the house. It was the sound that would change everything. In their room down the hall, Mr. and Mrs. Martin woke suddenly. They didn't know it yet, but their daughter's cry and the cat's desperate insistence had just saved their lives. Emma's small cries echoed down the hall, sharp and urgent. Mr. and Mrs. Martin woke instantly, hearts pounding. At first they thought it was just a nightmare, but the smell hit them almost at the same time, a faint, strange odor drifting through the house. "Tom, do you smell that?" Mrs. Martin whispered, her voice trembling. Tom Martin's eyes widened as he sniffed the air. It was subtle but unmistakable. Gas. Panic bubbled under the surface, but there was no time to waste. "Get Emma," he said quickly, leaping out of bed. Milo, the little gray cat, had stayed by Emma's side, meowing urgently, brushing against her legs and nudging her tiny hands. When Mrs. Martin rushed into the room, she found Milo standing protectively by the crib, tail raised, eyes fixed on the kitchen. The cat's gaze seemed to say, "Follow me." "There's danger." "Good boy, Milo," she whispered, scooping Emma into her arms. The child was still crying, her little face red and tear-streaked, but awake now. Milo followed closely, padding behind them as if guiding them safely. Tom ran to the kitchen. There, he saw it. A small, barely noticeable gas leak near the stove, the faintest blue wisp flickering in the dim light. His heart raced. He quickly turned off the valve and opened every window and door in the house. Fresh air rushed in, pushing away the heavy, invisible danger. Back in Emma's room, Mrs. Martin hugged her daughter tightly, feeling her tiny heartbeat against her chest. Milo jumped onto the bed, curling up next to Emma, purring loudly, now that the danger had passed. "You saved her," Mrs. Martin whispered to the cat, tears in her eyes. Milo blinked slowly, as if accepting the praise, then rested his head on Emma's blanket, keeping watch. That night, the Martins realized something they would never forget. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they have soft fur, sharp eyes, and a brave heart that beats in rhythm with the ones they love. The Martins finally stepped back, letting the windows carry the strange, heavy air out of the house. Emma clung to her mother, still trembling, while Milo sat nearby, tail flicking, eyes alert, even though the danger had passed. The family's hearts were still racing, but a deep sense of relief began to settle over them. Tom leaned against the kitchen counter, wiping sweat from his brow. I can't believe it, he said, his voice shaking. If Emma hadn't woken up, if Milo hadn't acted, he trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Mrs. Martin held Emma close, whispering calming words. Milo saved you, sweetheart. He knew something was wrong. Emma hugged Milo gently, burying her face in his soft fur. The little girl's tears slowly faded as the warmth of the cat comforted her. Milo, though calm now, remained watchful. His fur bristled slightly with each strange creak or distant sound. It was as if he understood that the danger might return, and his job was far from over. He had discovered something humans sometimes forget. Instincts, loyalty, and courage often come in unexpected forms. That night, after windows were closed and the house was finally quiet again, the Martins sat together in the living room. They talked softly, reliving every moment, the hiss of the gas, Emma's awakening, Milo's insistence. Each story was told with a mix of awe and gratitude. Emma, still clinging to her stuffed bunny, looked at Milo and whispered, "You're my hero." Milo blinked slowly, a soft purr vibrating from his chest, as if he understood the weight of her words. In the days that followed, the Martins couldn't stop thinking about the night that could have ended in tragedy. They decided to install new safety measures, gas detectors, extra locks, and small reminders of vigilance. But more importantly, they learned to listen to the quiet signals in their home, the sudden alertness of a cat, the subtle changes in the air, the tiny signs that often go unnoticed. Milo became more than just a pet. He was a guardian, a friend, and the hero who reminded them all that bravery can come in small furry packages. Every time Emma hugged him, she remembered how close they had come to danger, and how a small act of courage had changed everything. That night, as Milo curled up beside Emma in her bed, the family felt something profound: safety, love, and the unspoken bond between humans and animals who protect them without expecting anything in return. The days following that night were quiet, but the Martins' lives had shifted in ways they couldn't have imagined. Milo no longer slept in the living room alone. Instead, he made a new habit of curling up beside Emma each night, watching over her as if he understood that his role as her guardian had just begun. Emma, who had once tossed and turned in her sleep without concern, now seemed calmer. She would whisper to Milo before closing her eyes, "Thank you for saving me." And every time, Milo would stretch, blink slowly, and nuzzle her hand. It was a language of trust, a silent bond that needed no words. The parents, too, noticed a change. Mr. Martin often paused in the kitchen or hallway, watching the small gray cat patrol the rooms. He would shake his head in quiet amazement. Who would have thought a little animal could save a life? He murmured. Mrs. Martin smiled softly, holding Emma's hand. He didn't just save her. He reminded us to pay attention, to respect the signs, and to value every little thing that keeps our family safe. Milo became a subtle hero in ways no one could measure. He alerted the family to spilled milk before it ruined the kitchen floor, woke Emma gently during thunderstorms, and even seemed to sense when someone at the neighbor's house was upset, padding softly to the window and staring in concern. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the walls golden, The Martins sat together in the living room. Emma rested her head on Milo's back while he purred contentedly. "You're more than a cat," Mrs. Martin whispered. "You're part of this family in a way that words can't explain." Emma nodded, her little fingers stroking Milo's fur. "He's my hero," she said softly. "He saved me when I didn't even know I was in danger." Her voice held a maturity beyond her years, born from a moment of real peril and a tiny guardian's courage. Milo, oblivious to the weight of what he had done, simply blinked, stretched, and purred. But to the Martins, every blink, every gentle paw touch, was a reminder that true heroism can come quietly, without fanfare, without expectation, just pure, instinctive love. From that day on, the family didn't just live with gratitude. They lived with awareness, noticing the small signs, listening to the subtle alerts, and never underestimating the quiet courage of those who protect without words. Milo's actions had changed not only the night Emma was saved, but the way the family viewed the world, full of small, everyday heroes waiting quietly for the right moment to act. Weeks turned into months, and the Martins family slowly returned to the gentle rhythm of daily life. But something had changed forever in their home. Every corner, every shadow seemed to carry a memory of that night when Milo had been their silent hero. Emma never forgot the feeling of Milo's soft paws nudging her awake. She would often tell her parents, "Milo saved me, and I'll never forget him." Her small voice carried a seriousness beyond her years, and her parents would nod, smiling, realizing that the bond between their daughter and their cat had deepened into something unbreakable. Milo, in his quiet way, continued to watch over the family. He followed Emma everywhere in the house, from her playroom to the kitchen, and even into the backyard, where he'd sit patiently while she played. The Martins noticed how he seemed to sense even the smallest shifts in their home. An open window, a strange sound, or even Emma's faint cough. It was as if his heroism had given him a new purpose. One evening, the family sat together after dinner, sharing stories about the night that had changed everything. "I think we've all learned something important," Mrs. Martin said softly, glancing at Milo as he purred at Emma's feet. "Life is fragile, and courage can come from the most unexpected places." Tom Martin smiled, his eyes warm. "And sometimes the heroes aren't the ones in movies or books. Sometimes they're small, quiet creatures who act when we can't." Emma hugged Milo tightly, burying her face in his fur. Milo purred louder, rubbing his head against her cheek. That night, the family understood fully what gratitude truly meant. Not just the feeling of thankfulness, but the recognition of bravery and love, even when it comes in a tiny, furry form. From that day on, Milo was more than a pet. He was a symbol of vigilance, courage, and unconditional love. Every morning, every evening, every small moment reminded the Martins that life could change in an instant. And sometimes, the smallest hero could make all the difference. The night of the gas leak was long past, but its lessons lingered. The family never forgot how a little cat had saved a life, and how a simple act of instinct and care could ripple through their hearts forever. Years passed, but the memory of that night never faded from the Martins' hearts. Emma grew older, but she never forgot the little gray cat who had saved her life. Milo aged, too, his fur graying at the edges, his steps slower, yet his eyes always remained sharp, always watchful. Every night Emma would still say goodnight to Milo, stroking his fur with a quiet reverence. "Thank you, Milo," she whispered, her voice now steady and confident. "You'll always be my hero." Milo would blink slowly, curl beside her, and purr, a gentle rumble that seemed to say he understood the depth of her words. The Martins often told friends and neighbors about the night their cat had saved Emma. People listened, amazed at the courage of such a small, quiet creature. And though Milo didn't understand the words, he sensed the pride and love surrounding him. In every glance, every gesture, the family honored him. Even small everyday moments carried reminders of that night. Emma's parents would smile as they noticed Milo alerting them to minor dangers, an open cabinet, a knocked-over vase, or even the sound of the wind through a broken window. To them, these little actions were echoes of that unforgettable night, proof that Milo's instincts and loyalty were ever present. Milo had become more than a guardian. He was a teacher. Through his quiet bravery, he had taught the family lessons that could not be found in books: the value of attentiveness, the power of instinct, and the extraordinary impact of simple, selfless acts of care. As Emma grew into a young woman, she often thought about how fragile life could be and how even the smallest creature could make a monumental difference. She vowed never to forget that lesson. Courage doesn't need to be loud, and heroes don't always wear capes. When Milo's time eventually came, the family mourned deeply, but their grief was mingled with gratitude. He had given them something priceless: life, safety, and a reminder of love in its purest form. Even years later, whenever Emma looked at another cat, she remembered Milo, the little hero with golden eyes, soft paws, and a heart full of courage. And she carried his lesson with her always, that even the smallest among us can change lives, sometimes in ways we'll never forget. The end.